Good morning or afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeremy Walsh, and I'm the Director of Support, Training, and Documentation for BNI Connect. I'd like to welcome everybody to the webinar today. Today's webinar is really for leadership teams, and what we're going to be doing is discussing a lot of the leadership team tools and reports that are available to you throughout BNI Connect. Now, one thing to mention before we even get started with this webinar is this really is a position agnostic training, meaning that I'm not specifically putting this together for presidents or for vice presidents or for visitor hosts or for secretary treasurers. This is more, we're going to go through the system and show you a bunch of different things that's accessible to all leadership team positions. One of the reasons for that is that the permissions in BNI Connect can be delegated based on your own regional practices and your own regional procedures. And with that said, not every vice president in every region around the world does the same thing. So, for example, while in most areas the vice president is responsible for entering the POMS report on a weekly basis, that's not always the case. In some places, they have delegated that to somebody on the membership committee or the growth coordinator or the secretary treasurer or somebody else on the leadership team. And the great thing about BNI Connect is that it can accommodate for that as well. So I'll try to avoid as much as possible saying, well, it's the secretary treasurer's job to do this, and just show you some of these things. The other reason for that, by the way, is that this also allows for various positions to back each other up. For example, I'm sure this has never happened in your chapter, but let's say that the vice president goes on vacation for a couple of weeks. Well, do you leave it so that the POMS report doesn't get input for a couple of weeks, or maybe somebody else, such as the president or the secretary treasurer or somebody else with permission to do so, can jump in and do this function for those weeks that the other person isn't there. And the same is true for the speaker rotation or assigning a mentor and a mentee or all of these other functions that we have accessible here in BNI Connect. Now, with all that said, a couple of housekeeping tips here. First of which is that this is a live webinar. So if you have any questions whatsoever as we're going through the material today, please do feel free to ask those questions. I will be happy to answer them. Normally, these webinars are about 30 minutes. However, some of the functionality in this particular webinar, because we're going over kind of a bit more stuff than in a traditional webinar, this one typically takes somewhere around 40 to 50 minutes to go through all of the material. Some of that too will depend on questions. And by the way, there is no time limit on questions. If you have any questions, I am happy to stay online with you until every single question is answered. That is my job all day, every day. I answer BNI Connect questions for people, so I'm happy to do that here as well. We're also going to be recording this webinar. Webinars are made available usually within a couple of days of the webinar. You can find them on YouTube, youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. You can also find them on the support site, which is support.bniconnect.com, also accessible by clicking on the little question mark here in the upper right-hand corner of BNI Connect. So let's go ahead and get started with some of the leadership team tools and reports here in BNI Connect. Now, before we dive into some of the other parts of BNI Connect, just one quick thing that I want to make you aware of here on the home screen in BNI Connect, and this is the typical home screen, mostly because we tend to get a lot of questions about POMS reports and statistics and things like that. Some interesting things about the homepage here. The first of which is that this My BNI Business report and all of the information about the slips, the detailed information like client names and thank you for closed business, all of that is private to the member. So I can't go in and review anybody else's referral slips or thank you for closed business slips. We do share the statistics through the POMS report, and essentially this My BNI Business that is accessible to every member is their own view of the POMS report. So it's really their activity in BNI over the past 12 months and their lifetime. These numbers, by the way, are updated whenever the POMS report is updated. So on a weekly basis when Usually the vice president goes in and submits that POMS report. This My BNI business will be updated. And that's something important to keep in mind, because a lot of people, a lot of members, they'll submit online slips and they'll say, well, how come my number hasn't changed yet? How come the referrals didn't accrue? Well, that's because it doesn't happen until after the meeting and after that POMS report has been submitted and made official for the week. And one other thing about this is that there is a number up here, revenue received to my business, that is only accessible or only available if you're using the online slips. So all of the other pieces of information down below that, the referrals received, thank you for closed business given, referrals given, visitors, one-to-one CEUs, all of that information is pulled directly out of the POMS report. So regardless of whether people are using online slips or whether they're using the paper slips still in the meeting, if you haven't gone digital yet with your referrals, those numbers should all be accurate except revenue received to my business. That is a number we've never tracked before in BNI, and now it's accessible only when you submit electronic thank you for closed business. We'll keep a tally of all of the ones that you put in, and that will show up as revenue received to my business. So again, the only way that you can increment that number is by using the online slips. And while we're talking about POMS reports, one common thing that happens in many chapters is, the vice president or somebody will get approached and say, hey, there's something wrong with my POMS report. Not all of my numbers are there, or I wasn't absent 3 times, and many things like that. And one of the ways that you can troubleshoot that easily is by looking at the My Personal Participation report. So the next time you get a member that comes to you and says, hey, my numbers aren't right, what I'd recommend you doing is telling them to go in and clicking on the My Personal Participation report. And what this will give them is a week by week listing of everything that happened in their POMS report. So we can see here for 1 year, it will tell me week by week exactly what was entered for me. So I can go to the vice president or go to the leadership team and say, you know what, I really don't think I was absent on August 20th. As opposed to saying, well, I wasn't absent 3 times last year. This is a much more exact way to troubleshoot that. And if corrections need to be made, I'll show you how to do that in just a few seconds. All right, so now what we're going to need to do is we are going to need to go beyond the home page here a little bit. And what we're going to do is take a tour of a couple of the menu items up at top. And you'll notice we have up at top network operations, reports, tools, and admin. And this is really where all of the secrets of BNI Connect are located. Network is going to always be the networking components, or the really kind of the social media aspect of BNI Connect. And that's where we have the groups and the testimonials and the connections and things like that. Now, operations and reports are really where you're going to spend the majority of your time. Very few people have access to those other things, tools and admin, which just have some permissions related functions. But really, operations and reports is where you spend the bulk of your time. Operations is the day-to-day operations of managing a chapter. So in other words, wherever you're going to do data input or you're looking to create something in BNI Connect, really operations is where you're going to go to. Reports, on the other hand, is when you're looking to get information back out of BNI Connect, so mostly having to do with various statistics. So operations is input, reports is output. So let's take a tour of the operations menu and see some of the things that are going to be available there. Now we are looking at the chapter level operations today, which is where most of the leadership teams are going to spend their time. Now, on the left-hand side, we have a number of different options under operations, and on the right-hand side, we have the submenus. So under manage visitors, you can see that we have a number of things that we can do with visitors. Under meeting management, we have a bunch of things that we can do under meeting management. And there's a bunch of these that are available to leadership teams. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these today, otherwise we'd be here for probably 2 or 3 hours. I'm just going to hit some of the highlights of things that most leadership teams are doing on a weekly or a monthly basis. Now, that being said, if you see something on my screen that you're curious about or you're not sure about, by all means, please do drop me a question in the questions panel and I will be happy to explain it or go into it or just show you what's going on with it or what it means. So let's take a look at most of the common things that we're going to do here. One of those things is really the week-to-week aspects of managing a meeting. And of course, one of those things is making sure that POMS reports are entered on a timely basis, because really the POMS reports are the basis of our statistics in BNI. And really what we're looking for those referrals and how many one-to-ones we've done and how many people were present and absent, all of that. By the way, if you don't know what POMS stands for, it's present, absent, late, medical, and substitute. So we're going to find the POMS information here under meeting management. And under meeting management, we have a couple of different things. We have view POMS summary, we have enter POMS, and then we have view edit speakers. View POMS summary is going to allow us to go in and look at any individual POMS report. A lot of times we're looking at POMS under, especially the reports, we're looking at a longer period of time. So we're looking at 1 month or 3 months or 6 months. The view POMS summary is so that you can go in and look at any individual meeting. So when I click on that, I can choose a date, and I can choose any date range I'd like to. It's not limited just to your particular leadership team term, so you can go back and correct things in the past if need be. Keep in mind that it is audited, so your name will appear next to it if you do change it. But I can go back a year or longer, and I can see all of the POMS reports that are listed here and what their status is. Now, this is one of my test chapters up in Antarctica, so usually when you're going back in time for your own chapter, just about everything should say completed. While we're in BNI Connect, just a couple of little navigational tips here. You'll notice that I have an option here, show 10 entries. A lot of times when we're looking at a table like this, where we have a lot of things in a nice long list, we can expand that view by looking at more items at once. So I can choose that to, let's say, 100, and I can see a big long list of that. The other neat little trick here is that in most of these lists, you'll also see a refine or search box. So you can filter the list based on something that you're looking for. This comes in really, really helpful, especially when you're doing member searches and things like that. So if I go and let's say I just want to see all of the draft entries, I can type the word draft and it will just filter out any of the draft entries. Of course, I can always sort most of these. I can sort these by meeting date, or I can sort them by the status if I'd just like to see them in alphabetical order. Now to look at any of these individual entries, I'm just going to click on the word under the status, and anything that you see in blue is going to be a hyperlink, meaning that it'll open up a new page with that information. So if I want to go back and maybe look at the POMS report from the 18th of November, I could go ahead and click on the word completed, and this would take me to the individual POMS report. So here I can see all of the individual entries for that week. If there were any notes, I'd see the notes. The slips audit report will allow you to look at any of the individual slips that were entered electronically. So if your chapter is participating in online slips, they would all be listed here. If I need to make a correction to this, I could click on the unlock POMS, and I could go in and make any changes to this POMS report. And if I click back, I can go and I can search for another date range. Now, if I want to enter a POMS report, I can click this button up here that says Enter POMS. Of course, if I'm back on the Operations chapter menu, I can also go into Meeting Management and click on Enter POMS directly right here. Now, whenever we go to enter POMS, the first thing that we're going to be asked is, would you like to approve any visitors? And this would be whenever your visitor hosts have gone in and done all of their work for the week. They've gone in and let's say that you had visitors that were pre-registered, they marked them as having attended the meeting, or they entered new visitors for the week. In order for those to appear in the POMS report to give the inviting person credit, you have to approve that when you're entering the POMS for the week. And we can see here that we have John Smith was entered, and Becky Perrode is the one in the chapter that's going to get credit for it. We can see that I'm the one that entered that visitor. And this is going to be for the POMS report of the 9th of August. We can choose yes or no to add this person to the POMS. And if we'd like to, we can also go and view that POMS report to see if that was already manually entered. I'm going to go ahead and say yes to this one, and it will go and put a 1 in the V column for Becky for that particular POMS report. And once that has been done, it will then bring me on, and now I can enter a POMS report. So let's say I'm going to go ahead and enter the POMS report for last week's meeting. I click on Enter POMS, and it essentially brings me up a spreadsheet. So entering a POMS report really is as easy as filling out this spreadsheet. I can just go through and mark everybody's attendance. Again, P is present, A is absent, L is late, M is medical, and S is substitute. And put in their referrals given. Let's say that Albert Camus, he had an inside referral to Roger Dodger, so that would be a referral given for Albert and a referral received for Roger. Same things with one-to-ones. You always need to make sure you have both sides of that pair. So let's say Harvey Keitel here had a one-to-one with Ricky Martin. Mike Jones was thanked for $2,000 in closed business, and essentially what you're doing is you're going through all of the slips that were passed at that week's meeting. Quick note that CEUs, you do have to scroll over for CEUs, so they are in this column over to the right. You can add any remarks about this meeting. Great meeting today. And when you're ready, just click Submit. Now, there's a couple of other buttons down here that you might need to know more about, the first of which is Mark as Holiday. So here in the United States, we have Christmas and we have New Year's coming up. I know my personal chapter, we meet on Thursdays, so that is going to be a little bit of an issue with these upcoming holidays as it was for Thanksgiving. Now, our chapter, we choose to just meet on a different day of the week. However, if your chapter is not meeting that particular week, you do want to make sure that you mark it as a holiday. And what that does is it closes out this report and essentially removes it from all the statistics. So any online referrals or thank you for closed business or one-to-ones that were entered, those will all get pushed to the next available meeting. And any per chapter per week statistics, this will be taken out of that particular statistic. So make sure that you do, even if you're not meeting for a week, go in to submit the POMS report and mark it as a holiday. Now, if you get halfway through and you get called off to an important appointment, make sure you click it Save as Draft, and that will save the changes that you made. And you'd be able to go back to View POMS later and finish it up. And then you can also discard this POMS. If you just want to throw it away and start over again, click on Discard POMS, and that will allow you to do that. I'm going to go ahead and submit this one. It's going to say okay, it's going to give me a review screen, and now these will be part of the official statistics for the chapter. So in just a second, here we go, and there is the official statistics for that week's meeting. Now, from a online slips perspective, by the way, let me show you the benefit of having your chapter utilizing the online slips program. I'm going to switch over real quick to my personal chapter here in Rhode Island. Now, our chapter is exclusively online slips, meaning that we still have the paper to celebrate the activity and things like that, but if we don't enter it ourselves into BNI Connect, then it never happened. So when you do it that way, each week when you go to enter the POMS report, it will already be filled out for you. So looking at this week's meeting, so our next meeting is this Thursday, the 17th, and what's happening is throughout the week this week, as members are passing referrals and having one-to-ones and entering thank you for closed business and having CEUs, all of that, it's automatically recorded and entered into this POMS report so that essentially when my vice president of my chapter comes in this week, all she has to do is go in, take the attendance, and click submit. And I can check out this slips audit report and see all the details of everything that's happened so far this week in our chapter. And essentially, that's kind of everything you need to know about POMS reports and entering POMS reports. Any quick questions on that before I move on to the next thing? All right, so let's talk about the other thing under here in meeting management, and that is the ability to view and edit speakers. And the purpose of this is, every week we have, a keynote presentation or a weekly presentation where somebody's giving usually an 8 to 10 minute presentation about their business in the chapter. And what we can do is we can manage this speaker rotation here in BNI Connect. The purpose of this function is really to be able to remind the speaker that they're up this coming week, and also to remind the secretary treasurer that that person is speaking and we should make sure we have their bio and remind them to bring a door prize. Now, entering speakers is pretty straightforward. We click on View Edit Speakers. Now, if we'd like to review the list of speakers, we can go and just choose a date range and it will show us all of the already entered speakers. And once again, I can choose a longer list and see all of the ones that are pre-entered. Now, this is my personal chapter again. Now, you don't want to enter much more than 6 to 8 weeks because there tend to be too many changes. People need to reschedule or people join or leave the chapter and you need to squeeze them in. So recommendation, 6 to 8 weeks maximum into the future. We can see that our chapter has gone out through the 14th of January here. Once people are assigned, they will get a notification, again, 6 days before the next meeting. So in other words, 1 day after your last meeting, they'll get a reminder saying, by the way, you are the speaker this week. And then 3 days before the meeting, they will get a second reminder, and the secretary treasurer will also get the reminder. You can edit speakers by going in and clicking the edit button. You can enter or edit their topics of what they're going to be talking about. Or if you need to remove somebody, you can just click the delete button. One thing you cannot do at this time is to shift speakers around. So I can't, take Tom and swap him with Robin from the week before, or move Robin forward a couple of weeks or anything like that. In order to replace somebody, you need to remove them and then add them back in. Now, to add a speaker, you just click on Assign Speaker. You choose the date that they're going to be speaking. And note that you can only choose future dates. And the reason for this is that whole email portion of it. It schedules people into an email reminder, and as of now, if we tried to do that in the past, they'd get a very confusing email saying, hey, you're due to speak 3 weeks ago. And then you just choose the person from your chapter that's going to be speaking. One thing to keep in mind in this is that there may be a couple of names that you don't recognize on this list. For example, Elise Wilson, she is on this list, and that's because all of the regional teams and national teams are listed here as well. Elise Wilson is our national director here in the United States. The reason that they're listed is that there are a lot of smaller countries that are especially just starting out countries where the national director does make regular chapter visits, and this allows them to be scheduled as a speaker for those chapters. So enter a topic and you'll be all set there. Now, the other added bonus of this, by the way, is that the speakers get a little bit of extra visibility on the chapter websites. Every chapter does see it does have a regional website. So if I click on regional website and I go to my chapter's website, I can view BNI Wakefield here, and I can view my chapter website. You'll notice that all of the upcoming speakers are listed down here, and this is just one added little bonus that members have. I mean, we're listed on the BNI America site, you're listed on your regional site, you're listed on as a profile on your chapter site, and you're listed as a speaker when you're within the speaker rotation. So all these little hits help to make for a better internet presence. All right. Other than that, that is the speaker rotation in BNI Connect. Any quick questions about the speaker rotation? All right, as I said, I will be happy to stay on the call afterwards for any questions whatsoever. All right, looking through some of the other things under operations. Managing memberships, that is usually something that's a little bit more of a specialized thing in some regions. I'm not going to go into that today, but this is where we would go if in your region as a leadership team, you're responsible for entering applications and or managing them. In tomorrow's webinar, we're going to be talking about the online renewal process, so we will touch upon this a little bit tomorrow. There is also a goals program in BNI Connect. Now, we just did a whole webinar on this yesterday, and we went through the entire goals program, so I do recommend that you either catch the live one in January or you take a review of the webinar that we had yesterday. It is already uploaded to YouTube and the support channel. Now, the mentoring program is another added bonus here in BNI Connect. And what this allows you to do is when a new member comes into the chapter, we obviously want them to stay in the chapter a while, and we have a lot of tools that help them to do that. You know, the member success program and giving them the 3-minute presentation and all of these things to help them stay, the orientation with the president. The mentoring program, what that does is that it pairs them up with another member of the chapter, kind of like the buddy system, and it brings them through the first 6 to 8 weeks of their membership. So that way, as they're having questions, and really what they're supposed to be doing is having a one-to-one every single week for that first 6 to 8 weeks and having a different conversation. And the mentoring program walks them through that process. So for example, I could go in here and I can assign a mentor and a mentee. I choose the date that we're going to start that pairing. And of course, this is another email campaign, so it's really future looking. And what I'm going to do here is really, when do I want the emails to start? Now, if I want them to start getting the emails as of tomorrow, I can choose today. And they will start getting emails once a week for the next 7 to 8 weeks tomorrow. I choose the mentor, I choose the mentee. So essentially for the next 7 weeks here in this region, Christine and Greg are going to get an email saying, congratulations on being part of the mentoring program. Welcome to week 1. Here's what you're going to talk about. Welcome to week 2. Here's what you're going to talk about this week. And it steps them through the entire process. And this level of engagement really helps, especially new members, get off on the right foot, especially if they're being paired up with, let's say, somebody from their contact sphere that they can really get to know on a much better basis during that first critical couple of months of their membership. All right. Usually that's done by a mentor coordinator, although as anybody on the leadership team, you should have access to that as well. And some regions will have their own customized campaign, though there is one for the United States in there, so it should work for anybody using that. The next thing to show you real quick, under Create Email, we have a couple of different options. Now, in other webinars, the visitor webinar, for example, I go through the entire visitor process and show you the invitation and registering visitors and all that. The only thing I wanted to highlight today was one thing that a leadership team does do often is they do need to get in touch with their chapter. They need to send messages out. I find that the best way to do that is to come to Operations Chapter, Create Email, and then Email My Chapter. What this does is this gives you a distribution list, a current, accurate distribution list for your chapter. I mean, I can remember before BNI Connect, when I was on the leadership team or even when I was just a member, if I wanted to get an email out to my chapter, I would go back to my sent items or my folder for BNI and hit reply all, and it would never fail. Always go to the wrong people because there'd always be members that had just joined that they weren't in that list yet, or people that had left that didn't want the emails anymore. So this will be the most current and accurate email list. All you need to do is highlight this stuff, right click and choose copy. And at that point, you do need to use your own email program. So start up a new email message. I always recommend putting it into the BCC line. And that way, A, it keeps people's addresses private, but it also reduces on a lot of the reply all, yeah, I got it, yeah, I got it. emails that tend to annoy everybody in these large email chains. Type in your subject and message and go ahead and send that. All right, and again, the visitor invitation is great. If you haven't played with that yet, definitely jump in and take a look at that, or jump onto our visitor webinar as well, where we go in depth with that. Now, the news functionality, this is a specialized functionality that allows you to really edit a page on your chapter website without having to go into the CMS editor to do it. So really it becomes kind of like a message board for your chapter. By default, it is turned off, so if you don't see that one, definitely talk to your executive director, and if you'd like more information on that. You can always click the question mark in front of certain objects within the system as well. For example, this Manage News, if you'd like some more information, click that little question mark. It'll take you to the help document specifically for that function, and this will show you exactly how the news functionality works. All right, and that's really the basic operations portion of BNI Connect for leadership teams. What I'd like to do, if you have any questions, please ask them now. Otherwise, let's take a look at some of the leadership team level reports that you guys might find helpful in your various positions. All right, so let's take a look at reports. So to get to the reports, we are going to go to reports, and we're going to take a look at the chapter level reports. Now, there's over 20 reports here at a chapter level. I am not going to go through every single one of them today, unless you want me to, of course. But I'm going to highlight probably, maybe 9 or 10 of my personal favorite reports, both at a leadership team level. I'm also a director consultant, so some of the things that I'm looking for when I'm working with chapters as well. Although, I'll be honest with you, it's going to look like I'm going through every report because the first 4 or 5 of them are the most common reports in the system. So the member training report, that is the first one on the list, and this one's pretty obvious. If you want to find out who's taken what training in your chapter, you can turn to this member training report. That's the obvious part of it. However, there's one thing that very few people notice on here, and that's this option down at the bottom, show never attended. And why this one is really, really helpful, especially for secretary treasurers and membership committee people. One of the things that we're supposed to do is, before we can be put into the speaker rotation, we need to go to a member success program. Well, how do we easily find out who has and hasn't gone to the member success program? Click on show never attended and go to the member success program. Once you click go, this will essentially give you the list of people in your chapter that have not yet taken the member success program. So these are people that should not be scheduled for their 10-minute presentation and should be highly encouraged to get to the next member success program. You can even see what date they joined to see how far behind they are. It is recommended that you take this within the first 30 days, maximum 60 days. So we can see that we are reaching that point with a couple of people in my chapter. We'll have to have a talk with them at the meeting on Thursday. All right, the chapter roster report. This is a pretty straightforward, simple report here. It's just going to have your chapter roster, right? So all the people are going to be listed down below. So it has their names and their classifications, their companies, their phone number. Great way to get in touch with people. Take a look at them. See their last 90 days of their POMS report. But what's really important about this one, especially to leadership teams, is looking at the stuff at the top. It's going to really show you the assignments. A lot of times, especially at the regional level and here at support, we get I'm visitor host, but I don't seem to be able to enter any visitors. The first thing to check is to make sure that people are properly assigned as, let's say, the visitor host or as the educational coordinator or on the membership committee. A lot of permissions in BNI Connect happen due to the assignments and the roles that they have in the system. So if they're not listed here, it means that they don't have the position and they may not be able to get into some of the things that they need to do, which usually means that they haven't signed an agreement or they haven't been trained. So do talk to your regional office, your regional admin, or your executive director, your director consultant, to find out why they're not listed that way, and they can help you out with it. If you're not sure who your director consultant is, or you're not sure how to get in touch with them, you can also find that information here. Over on the right-hand side, you have regional leadership, and you can see who your director consultant is and even give them a call. All right, the membership dues report. This one is great for really secretary treasurers, and membership committee people are going to use this one the most. And this is because this is going to tell us when everybody is up for renewal. So we can see here when their due date is. The people that are in bold here, they should be well into the process of submitting their renewal forms. So people that are within 1 to 2 months of renewal should be in that process of being reviewed, being approved, and having their renewals done. But one little more advanced thing here is that from a membership committee perspective, some of the people that you want to be reviewing really aren't just the people that are up for renewal this month or next month. It's the people that are up for renewal in 6 months. And the reason for that is especially for any members that you may have a concern on whether they're going to renew or not, or whether you want to be renewing them or not. Those are the people that still have a chance to change. Within 30 days, within 60 days, you may not be able to fully change some of the habits of the past year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. The people that are 6 months out, so really the people that we want to be looking at are the people that are due in April and May and June, and working with those members to make sure that they're doing the right things, or if they need any help, to be able to reach out and help them. All right, I promise I'm going to skip a couple of reports soon, but not this one. The meeting notes report, by the way, this is such a simple little report, but it has huge impacts in the chapter. The meeting notes report is really a means of being able to take notes at the meeting. One of the best ways that you can increase the number of referrals that you're able to give in your chapter, or on the leadership team to increase the number of referrals for your chapter as a whole, is to, of course, do one-to-ones, but second to that, pay attention when people are giving their weekly presentations. As people are going around the room, especially in my chapter has 44 members in it, by the time member number 33 goes, I don't really remember exactly what number 2 asked for. Best way to combat that, take notes during the meeting. Now, this one is really meant to be either printed by just clicking the print button. You can print this one out and it leaves a space and a line there for you to take notes during the meeting. However, this one is probably better off exported. Now you notice there's a couple of different options here, and this is true on just about every single report in BNI Connect. You can export, and then most of them also have the option export without headers. Now the difference is when I choose export, what it's going to do is export everything you see on the screen here. So it's going to include meeting notes report, running user, run at, the time, the date. Now, the problem with that is that all of these create like weird merged fields and stuff. So trying to sort things and change the size of things gets kind of a pain in the butt. So there's this other option, export without headers. And what that's going to do is it's really going to start down here where all the data is. And when I choose export without headers, now I can really go in and make this report my own. So if I really want to go and I want to format this, or I'd rather have it by first name or last name or company name, or let's say I just want this notes field to be bigger, I can go and I can resize that and make sure that I have enough room to take my notes, or even just take this to my meeting and keep notes electronically instead of writing things down on a piece of paper. You're able to do that all through this meeting notes report. Now, a lot of chapters for years have been doing this, but it was always a chore to have to manually update that list whenever somebody joined or left. Now you can recreate this list on the fly. Now, just just as an aside, this is a little kind of advanced thing that my chapter does. What we do is we print out like 50 copies of this every week. So we print it out. Everybody gets one in front of their little place at the meeting. All the visitors have one as well so that they can match names to what people are looking for around the room. But then we take one and we pass one of these around the room to all the members. And if they have a specific referral, they can write it down on that piece of paper. And then one member of our chapter collates that, types it into an electronic report, and emails it out to the whole chapter. So now we've been doing this for a couple of years, and now I have a couple of years worth of lists of what people were asking for. Because a lot of times in networking, you know, Matunic Oyster Bar, I mean, that's somebody that I may not have the opportunity to speak to for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 months after somebody asked for it. But when I finally do go and I say to myself, yeah, you know what, I just had a meeting with Matunic Oyster Bar. I don't remember who asked to meet Matunic Oyster Bar. I can go back and do a quick search in my email and be able to figure out who, or maybe it was multiple people asked to meet the Matunic Oyster Bar, and I'd be able to make that referral finally. So again, a really, really simple report, but once you start using it, when you start putting it into practice, it can make a huge impact in your chapter. All right, we also have the Summary Palms report. This one is the bread and butter. Hopefully everybody knows about the Summary Palms. We spent a lot of times on Palms Day, and this is one that will really tie all that information together. By default, it's going to show you the last 6 months of data for your chapter, but you can go back if you want to, and our chapter was formed somewhere in like 2001 or something, so I can go back even before that, and I can even choose to show all of the dropped members. This is a great little trick too if you ever want to reach out to alumni of your chapter, of figuring out who the alumni is, because they'll all be listed here. Especially once in a while, take a look through that list. Maybe there's some good members that left for good reasons that you'd love to invite back to your chapter. All right, now I'm going to skip down a couple, and let's take a look at the classifications not in chapter report. Now, this report, what it does is it kind of does what it says. It's going to give you a list of classifications. Now, this is going to be the big, long, humongous list of 500 categories here in BNI, and it's going to tell you all of the ones that you don't have. So I have 44 members in my chapter, so it's going to show me the other, 456 other categories that we don't have. But more importantly than that, what it's going to show you is how many other chapters in your region. So here in Rhode Island, how many other chapters have those categories? So for example, here we have printing services. So this is telling me I don't have a printer in my chapter, and that's true that we don't have a printer, even though it's a pretty popular category. It's so popular, in fact, that of the 20 chapters in our region, 7 of those chapters have a printer in it. That means that as I'm approaching a printer to maybe invite them to the meeting, I can tell them that, you know what, it is pretty successful being a printer in our region. I might even be able to introduce you to other printers that are having success in the region. It also means that I'm not competing against other chapters, especially other chapters that might be close by, to fill the printer position. So it makes it actually easier to invite a printer there because they can't go shopping around at chapters. Here's a caveat with this report, however. Because some of the categories are so very close to each other, for example, we do have a residential mortgage person in our chapter. However, it is listing mortgages here. So you got to be a little bit careful with this report. But for the most part, it still is a very, very helpful report. Another great use for this report is that because it shows so many categories on it, I mean, if you look through this list, it goes on and on and on for many, many pages. So a lot of times, especially with veteran members, they say, I have invited every single person I know to come and visit this chapter. This is a great little refresher list that says, hey, you know what? I never really thought about inviting somebody that does garage doors, or somebody that does appliance repair, or concrete pouring, or solar energy, elder care consulting. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. It's a great way to just trigger some of those less common professions, but that still exist in BNI. Maybe not in your region, but in order for them to have the category here, they exist somewhere. All right, scrolling down a bit, you can also use the Personal Palms report. This is the same report that you found on the front page, except that you can run this for any other member of your chapter. Secretary treasurers out there, they're always wondering, well, how do I print out the bio for that member that's giving their 10-minute presentation? You can do that through the member details report. So through the member details report, you can go and view somebody's bio, their gains, their weekly presentation, or their tops. So let's click on bio, for example, and let's say I'm the one giving the 10-minute presentation this week. My secretary treasurer could go in, pull up my bio, and be able to print this out in order to introduce me for the 10-minute presentation this week. The other thing that this is great for is if you think back to your member success program, one of the things that we're taught is that before every one-to-one, we're supposed to be doing what's called the gains exchange, goals, accomplishments, interests, networks, and skills. Well, we have this information in BNI Connect now. I mean, I remember when I first joined BNI, they asked us to fill out a piece of paper and fax it to our one-to-one partner. I don't even know if I own a fax machine anymore. But now I can go here, and if I wanted to, I can either just copy and paste this or export it, or I can look this up for another member of my chapter or go view it on their profile. Doing the gains exchange is a lot easier nowadays. All right, and there's other great reports on here. The chapter visitor report, that's an underutilized resource, especially for re-inviting people to your chapter, and the PALMS attendance report and traffic lights and the visitor registration reports. All of these reports are great to look at. You can't break anything when it comes to reports. Again, they're all read only. So you can get the information out, but you can't really break anything. So please do take some time to go through and view all of the reports in the system and take a look. You may just find your own favorite report. Now we're just about done. I just want to show you guys just one more thing here in BNI Connect before I let you go for the day. And that is that once you start finding some of your favorite things, you can create your own shortcut list or your own, without having to navigate through to operations and reports and tools and admin and network and all of that. You can create your own shortcut list right on the home screen. Now, to do that, I'm going to go back to the home button here. And what you'll notice on the left here, there's this little ribbon thing, and this has a couple of different shortcut menus for you. So this My BNI Business, this obviously is the home screen here. If I switch down to My Network, this is all the networking components. It also has your regional document library, a listing of events that are coming up in your region, and also an internal messaging system. But below that, you should see something that says Chapter. And what this chapter menu is this is your own personal shortcut list that you can configure any way you want to. So anything that's available under operations chapter and reports chapter and network and tools that you have access to, you can put into this shortcut menu. So the way we do that is we click configure. Now on the left-hand side, these are all the links that are currently in my shortcut menu, and I can rearrange them. I can drag them down. Let's say this email visitor invitation, I'm going to drag that down to the bottom of the list. If I don't want something in my list, like chapter traffic lights, we're not going to use that. I'm going to take that out of my list. If I want something in my list, I can just put a little check boxes in the list over here. And again, let's say I want the chapter websites all the way at the top. And I would like the view edit speakers all the way up at the top. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and save that by clicking submit. I'm going to close out of it. And now you should see my chapter list is now transformed. It is now reordered and reorganized with my view edit speakers here at the top. So if I click on that, instead of having to go to operations, chapter, meeting management, view edit speakers, I can just click on that one button and be brought right over to this function. So it saves, 3, 4, 5 clicks in a lot of cases. Now, usually I do show this to people last because once you start using the shortcut list, you'll probably never go diving back into the operations or reports menu, but please do every once in a while, just in case we put some new features in there that you may not have known existed before, or you're looking for that report to do something that you didn't know it did. All right, so I think I'm at the end today. So what I'd like to do is open this up to any questions. Do you have any questions whatsoever about any of the various tools and reports here that are available to leadership teams in BNI Connect? Be happy to answer those questions now. While you're thinking up any last minute questions, just a couple of reminders. This is being recorded. You'll be able to view that recording on the support site. To get over to the support site, you can click on this question mark in the upper right-hand corner, or really you can click on any question mark, and that will take you to the support site. And on the home page of the support site, let me zoom this in a little bit. First thing you'll see at the top is our list of webinars. So you can find our next upcoming webinars. By the way, a good referral for me. Please let your chapter members and regions know about these webinars. We have our very next webinar tomorrow. We're going to be talking about chapter web pages. This is really specifically for chapter webmasters or anybody that's interested in updating their chapter web page. Going to be at the same bat time, same bat channel at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. And then on Thursday, we're going to be talking about the online renewals and how that whole process works here in BNI Connect. And then in January, we're going to do the whole list again. So there will be live webinars throughout January as well. So please do join us. If you'd like to see one of the recordings, you can view the recorded webinar series. You can see them scattered out here by month, or you can always check us out on YouTube. So youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. We have hundreds and hundreds of videos up here. You know, if you'd like to know when new videos are uploaded, please do go ahead and subscribe. And you can check out our video content. It's, of course, all of these monthly webinars, but we also have other things up here as well, like short educational moments, which are little, 5-minute videos, 3 to 5 minute videos on very specific topics. Like if you wanted to teach your chapters how to pass a referral in BNI Connect, you have your little 3 to 5 minute video there for that. All right, and finally, I'd love it if you gave us a like on Facebook, facebook.com/BNI Connect Global. We do tips and tricks and reminders and some other things up here on the Facebook channel as well, so do give us a like up there. All right, I don't see any questions. I guess everything was crystal clear today. All right, if there's no questions, I'm going to let you guys get back to work, and I look forward to seeing you all on a future webinar. Happy connecting, everyone.